I've been working on a Akka SDK demo for a while now that I wanted to give you an introduction to. I'm planning on doing a whole series of videos based on some of the things that are in this application. It's been a blast building it. There's some really interesting things that Akka does to make all this work. And it's amazing how relatively simple the Akka piece of this is for what we're going to see that it does. And there's also some other surprises. So what happened was I originally wanted to create a demonstration that showed the behavior of an Akka system running visually. I like to visualize things. And more importantly, my real objective on this initial objective on this application was to show one of the most awesome features of Akka is multi-region replication. So here what we're looking at is the user interface, the web user interface of this application running on the Akka platform. And there's actually two browser windows pointing into two different regions. So on the left is Amazon on the East Coast somewhere, and on the right is an Amazon region in Europe. So this is where things get kind of cool in this demo, where I can change the state of a cell on the grid, and each cell represents or can represent a unit of state, which is what an entity does within the Akka SDK. And another video, I'll go much more detail on the different components that the Akka SDK has. There's 6 main components, and I'll show you the components that are used in this application. One of the most important components of the group is what's called an entity. And an entity is a thing that manages state, like an object, a person, an order, a thing, whatever. In this case is the color of a cell, but there's some more data that goes with it. So what I can do is I can mouse over a cell and I can change its state by entering a command like R to turn a cell red, G to turn a cell green, blue to turn a cell blue. But also notice on the right is you can see the how quickly things appear in Europe. So the latency, this is what really amazed me, the latency between performing an action in one region and seeing that data get replicated and be viewable, actionable in another region, the latency is pretty spectacular. So just visually, you can see that it's it's sub-second. So, but I wasn't happy with that. I mean, I was happy I got this part working and the visualization piece going. That's pretty cool. And there's, again, I'll go into more detail of how all this works using Akka, the Akka SDK. But there is a feature here where if I mouse over one of these cells, it shows some of the data related to that cell. So I'm going to show you here. So what we're seeing is a graph that shows the latency between the entity getting created, which is represented by the red dots on the left, which was the entity gets created once in whatever region the entity is mastered in, basically, or that's the primary unit of data. The other regions are replicants of that entity. So in any case, on the left is when the entity was created, and then the yellow dots represent the time that it took between the entity getting created and a view getting updated with the data. Now, don't worry if you don't understand it. Other videos will go into more detail. But what's really cool here is that this application is actually running on 3 regions. One is Amazon on the East Coast. Another one is Google Cloud Platform somewhere on the East Coast. And then the third one is the Amazon in the EU, which, by the way, I deploy this application once, and it goes to these 3 different regions, and they're cloud agnostic. I don't care if it's Google or Amazon or whatever, they get deployed there. So it's, building this application, implementing and deploy it, what infrastructure it actually runs on is not part of the drama, the process of building these applications. That's all abstracted away, which is really awesome. So in any case, you can see here that the entity was created, and 6 milliseconds later, the view was updated in its primary region on the US East Coast. 31 milliseconds later, in another region, another data center in Google, not Amazon, it got replicated 31 milliseconds. this one really surprised me. The 62 milliseconds time to replicate from Amazon in the East Coast to somewhere in Central Europe. 62 milliseconds. That's how quickly. And this is pretty amazing, I think. So okay, got that. Now another thing you can do is I wanted to have something where I could basically kind of generate some more activity. So I can do things like create a circle. So I can say, give me a circle of red dots, and give me another circle of, I'll say 5 green, and I'll do like 8 blue, and 8 orange. So what's happening here is that those commands generated, each cell got generated independently in a very interesting way, which I won't go into here, but you can see all these cells got created pretty quickly. You watched it happen in real time, and each cell has some state. Each cell, it has a backing entity behind it, and we can see how much time it took to do each cell. You can see some of the latencies, like what's going on. So if we can see over on the European side, it took a little bit longer for things to get there. Because first we have a burst of activity, but now it's like 240 milliseconds to replicate from US to Europe. Now I can see the number on the European side, but I can go to the same cell on the US side, and that graph pops up, and we get more detail. And there's another graph that we can do where we get some of the some of the detail in the state of each of these entities. Another pop-up that's available here. So that's kind of what it does. So you can generate a lot of traffic. Be warned, this application can generate a lot of traffic. So if you're running it on the platform, you got to be careful, because it can spin the meters pretty quick. Where you're eating up time to do things. But this application will generate some activity. But real time, you can see how quickly things were happening. I've created like 519 entities in a few seconds. Now, a final thing I want to show you that's a real fun feature is what I call a predator. And a predator is an entity that consumes other entities. And the entities go by, the consumer smells out the entities. So blue is the most attractive, green is the next attractive, orange is the next attractive, and red is the least attractive. So consumed all those entities going through that. This was a blast to implement. You won't believe how easy it was to do something like this with a single entity I used to do this. All this behavior you saw was done with a single entity. But that's not it. So that was fine what I did, but what I wanted to do was add some more things to this. And this is, if you're into AI in our business, I think one way or another we're all in, no matter whether we like it or not. That's what's happening. And 2025 is the year of agents. So of course I had to add an agent to this thing. And so this was fairly easy to do. It was really interesting. And what this agent does is there's a record button in the top corner here. I'll click it. Create a green circle with a radius of 5. So I've turned off the recording. That recording gets submitted. It gets transcribed by ChatGPT Whisper, and then it gets processed, and then it invokes the application as a tool. So you can see here that it created the green circle where I asked. So another thing I can do, I'll enter another command. This is where things get kind of fun. Create 7 circles, radius of 5 in random locations around the viewport with random colors. So if the demo gods are with me, It transcribed the command okay. So the agent's kind of breaking down this command into invoking tools. The tool in this case is drawing circles. So it should start drawing some circles. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think it's done. So there's an agent in here as well that takes audio to text. And the final thing I'll do to wrap this presentation up, and I'll start working on some of the other ones, is I'll create a predator, and we can watch the predator consume all the yummy cells here. I'll do it where close to where the red is, which again, it least likes red. Blue is the most attractive. It won't eat its own. It's purple, and so it's blue, green, orange, red. So let's see what happens. Create a predator with a range of 5. It's running nice and pretty quick for the AI. So we should see a predator show up here. There it goes. You see how it kind of it started in the red and it very quickly went to the blue. Now it's grabbing the red. Now it's going to grab some more blue. It'll grab the orange, eat all that up, eat up all the red, but then it doesn't touch the purple. So the actual movement of this predator, grid cell by grid cell by grid cell, was done through an event-driven process. It's absolutely amazing. So cool. I can't wait to explain to you guys how this works. So I hope you're interested. I'll drop a link to the GitHub repo for this. This project's under active development, so it will be changing. I'm still, cleaning it up and making adjustments and so on, but you can download it. You can run it locally. It runs great locally, no problem. It's very easy to do, and you can also deploy it to a trial platform. You won't have multi-region, or if you do have multiple regions, you could try that out as well. But it's a lot of fun. So keep learning, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.